as a roofer, but your job as a business contractor is revenue stream diversification. A great way to do that. Welcome to the Scout Podcast. Today we're here with two special guests. They're going to share some of their backgrounds in the profession, where they've been, what they're doing now, and where they're hoping to go with their partnership. So without further ado, I introduce Debbi Myers.
Hi.
Yes.
Good to be here, Josh. I think Mary and I share a little piece of our origin story in that we came to real estate from soul-sucking corporate jobs that we were at way too long.
Outside of real estate?
Outside of real estate. And when I finally got the chance to leap out of there and into real estate, it was no looking back. I've been 28 years in real estate. Dang. I started off as a sole practitioner, working out of my office, working my schedule around my two little kids, building up a clientele. Before the crash, when I first got into the market, there was nothing to do except short sales and foreclosures.
Why was that?
We were in the middle of a recession. It was a great time to get into the real estate market.
And what year was it?
96.
96.
Happy times.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it was hard, but I don't regret it because I learned stuff I wouldn't have learned any other way.
Yeah.
So then in 2008, when stuff started going south again, I was like, oh, I've seen this, and I could jump right in. But I worked for a long time as a sole practitioner over time.
And what is that, sole practitioner?
So just by myself,
Okay.
me working all by myself, and it was great. And then I hired some agents. I took some agents on. In Idaho, you have to, if you have a real estate license and you're not a broker, you have to license under what is called a designated broker, tasked by the state of Idaho with overseeing each transaction and full responsibility. What I discovered really quickly was that I didn't want that responsibility for just any agent. I wanted agents that were, ethical, had integrity, and were well trained, but also I didn't have the resources to train people the way I wanted them to. So I kind of got out of that and was a sole practitioner again for a number of years. I became an instructor because there was a hole to fill in that teaching, and I just discovered I really liked that.
And that was with the state agency, right?
Yes,
yeah, okay.
Right. And then I woke up one morning and went, wow, this career has been great. I have a home office, which is terrific with my kids, and I really loved it. And I woke up one morning and went, wait a minute, I'm a divorced empty nester. This home office is not really cutting it anymore. So I interviewed at Front Street Brokers.
That's right.
And I went there, and I was there for almost 6 years before they were bought out by another firm.
And that was a good ride, a good experience.
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it very much. It was really
with Mike Turner.
Super happy time in my real estate career, surrounded by really great people, getting to do a lot of mentoring and educating. And I'm kind of full circle back into that now. Mary and Jamie Patochka and I have started a brand new brokerage just this fall. And it's really focused on those things that I loved about my own brokerage, but then also about Front Street Brokers. Integrity, mutual respect, a lot of education and availability to our agents. And we don't take just any agent. So the agents that are with us, I feel really comfortable and I sleep perfectly well at night knowing I'm responsible for their files because they do things the right way. And when they have questions, they seek out answers immediately. And they have 3 great resources when they have those. So it's really exciting.
And Mary is one of those 3 resources.
Mary is one of those. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, we've got I'm kind of getting to be in the hot seat with these nice looking gals on each side of me today. So I'm kind of playing Regis Philbin in the middle with the with the instruction. But yeah, well, thanks for being here, Mary. I appreciate you so much, and super happy to learn more about you. And
my background is a little different. Yes, I worked in human resourus or
kind of
office
corporate
management,
America.
either for the government or nonprofits for many, many years. And just a random fluke conversation 9 years ago, and I went and got my real estate license. And while I was sitting in that class, they were explaining that you had to have your license, I think, for 3 years and a certain amount of transactions before you could get your broker's license. And I thought, oh, okay, well, that's what I'll do then. Even before I even had my real estate license, I already had a plan of when I would have my broker's license.
That's cool.
So, yeah, 5 or 6 years ago, I met Debbi, and she was my designated broker. And I mean, you know her. I instantly fell in love with who she is as an agent, as a broker, as a human. And so just being able to work alongside of her is phenomenal.
Part of Mary's role was as the managing broker was supporting me.
Okay.
And which was great because if I wasn't available, if I'm teaching a class or something, and the agents have a question, they have someone else to go to, another resource to go to. But it also meant that I could go on vacation, which was,
When you're bringing on new agents and you see these massive brokerages that have 20, 30, 40, 50 agents deep, all of those.
So that's
those are small brokerages.
agent.
Oh, really? Okay.
I would say as little as 10 years ago, a brokerage of 100 was considered a very large brokerage.
Really? Okay.
But now that's nothing. And for some brokerages, that just having those licensees is an income stream. So if you have 2,000 agents, say, and they each pay you $50 a month,
so there is
just
a
to
fee
belong there,
Yes.
Okay.
and they never sell a thing, that's a pretty good stream.
I went into real estate because I know people and I like to solve people's problems. The first time that somebody said to me, well, I definitely don't want to live on a flag lot. Okay. Well,
What's a flag lot mean?
that was exactly right. I was like, I don't know what a flag lot is.
But you're like noting it.
I'm
You're
like,
Siri,
okay,
what is
dear
flag
Google.
lot? Yeah.
It's when the house is built behind the other house and you drive through
Like in
the
a cul-de-sac?
driveway and
weird.
and go the house behind and it's shaped like a flag.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, so I will make sure of that. But I learned a lot about houses while I was in real estate, but I knew people.
A person who solves people issues as a job is obviously tremendously stressful. But when you're in the pocket doing it with people you like, it can be the most fun thing ever.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
There's a fine
Most
line.
satisfying work ever.
Yes.
Yeah, but
Yep.
there's a fine line between beauty and disaster sometimes. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yes.
As far as just the team.
Sometimes it's moments apart.
What is something that's awful? Like what are the things that you go through where someone else might say, that was my moment to stop. And then you may be saying, I also had that moment to stop, but didn't. And this is why.
So because I did have 30 years of experience in other profession, and working for someone else, being an employee. And when I first got my real estate license, I kept my day job for the first year because
That's smart.
I had never been self-employed and I needed to know that I was going to have that safety net. And I was lucky that it came in a time of my life that both of my sons were out of the house. So I was already the empty nester when I started doing this. And so that gave me a little more freedom. But
Yeah.
From day one, it's been the best thing I've ever done in my life. And even on the worst days when everything is falling apart and you go, oh gosh. And so many days you wake up, you're unemployed. Like if you don't have somebody to show a house to that day, or you don't have a closing, or you don't have something pending, it's like, okay, well, what am I going to do to be employed tomorrow or later today? Like what are you going to move that forward with? But I wouldn't trade it for the world. And I think if you don't have that feeling, then it's probably going to be a part-time job.
Not just maybe real estate agent as a job, but maybe entrepreneur
Yes,
as a title in
in
general.
Yep.
I think in today's world, especially with social media, we see such a polished, refined version of everyone's lives that it's like you have been telling me for years and years, it's like the beauty is in some of the non-beauty, right? It's like it's okay to be vulnerable and not perfect. It's okay to talk about stories that aren't the most perfect path ever. And that's completely fine because everybody probably has that. So I think it's kind of cool to just hear about the different paths. You see somebody having success and it's just the tip of the iceberg of all the stories that have been underneath that have propped the people up and brought people together. Can you guys share a little bit about kind of the core soul of the company a little bit?
So the name Powered By is not an accident. In the state of Idaho, you're required by law to have the name of your brokerage featured in any advertising you do. So your signs that are in front of a house, your business cards, your bus sign, whatever you're doing, has to have the name of the brokerage. And it occurred to the three of us that we wanted that brokerage name to fade into the background. This isn't about us as a brokerage. We're not promoting the brokerage. We're promoting our agents. Just like our agents aren't promoting themselves, they're promoting their clients.
Yep.
And it works beautifully.
That's cool.
It really does.
So when someone has a sign or a T-shirt or a business card, it just says, Powered by Mary Barnett Real Estate. We're in the background by design.
Yep.
But also as a client, as a consumer, most people don't have any idea who the brokerage is or why, right?
At all,
you know the agent that you have a connection with, that has served your needs and your family's needs and that you've built a relationship with.
Yeah.
And if that agent moves from this brokerage to that brokerage, you're like, yeah, so what? I don't care. What does that even mean to me?
That is such a good point.
Right?
Yep.
So just as when Mary is still working with clients and when she works with a client, they are the focus of her attention. They are the why in that transaction. And that translates now, the brokerage, our clients are our agents. So whatever I do, whatever I say, it's in the service of those agents in order to help them build the business they want that looks like they want. So I have agents ask me all the time, what are you requiring from me for production, and what is successful? And it's like, what is successful to you? If successful to you is always picking your kids up from school every day and having 30 solid minutes with them, and maybe that means you have to get up at 5 a.m. to get your work done so you can get that done, whatever.
Because that's going to feed everything.
It feeds everything.
That makes sense.
And so if you're happy and you're joyful in what you're doing, that's gonna translate to your clients. It's gonna translate to your coworkers, and you will find that when people are given that, I mean, not everybody, the agents that we have that are like-minded, when they're given that opportunity, the first thing they want to do is help others, whether it's their clients or other agents. You will see agents say, "Oh, I don't know how I'm going to get this and this done," and another agent go, "I could do that for you," right? It's just, that's the culture that's there. And so how many agents will that end up being? That's a great question.
Just depends.
We just don't know. As long as I need to, for my own heart, I need to know my agents. I need to know who they are.
Yep.
I need to know who their kids are, or their dog or their cat. I need to know them on a personal level.
Yeah.
And when we reach a number where I can't know those people anymore, then that's too many. I don't know what that number is.
Yeah.
But they also have to be, I mean, we've told a couple people, sorry, you're not a fit for us, who have asked to come on.
Which is okay, because they'll be a fit for some.
Absolutely.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And it's so much better for everybody involved if you can make that call up front instead of trying to cram it together and make it work.
And the growing part, I think, is an interesting point as far as getting that feeling when you know a certain amount of people, because anybody that's watching this that's an entrepreneur, if you've made it to a certain tier of success, I like to talk about it like Kool-Aid. It's like every time you pour Kool-Aid into water, it's going to get less and less colored of the original, right? So it's kind of a similar thing that I did with business, where we said, hey, with Jeff and I and Clint and all of the guys that we built our teams out of, we had to have as much of our ness or as much of our, core features and what we wanted to have in the business as we could before we were allowing a second level of people to be the torchbearers, right? Yep. And that feeling is really, I think, the difference between success and not, because if you don't have that gut feeling and your head is in the area of following maybe a balance sheet or income versus a feeling and a service, don't you guys think that's a good differentiator?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so what you talk about, that Kool-Aid, so that dilution of the culture.
Yes, dilution of culture. That's what I was trying to say.
If you dilute that culture, you've got nothing.
Yep.
Right? Yep. So our culture started...
Because you don't have a product.
We don't have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we started, the three of us, are very like-minded and very passionate about the same things. And the words that pop up when we're talking are always words like integrity and mutual respect. And if you only let people in who share that, it's really easy then to not dilute your culture, right? Because they already just organically share that same thing. We're not teaching them integrity, and we're not teaching them mutual respect. They already have that. And that's the quality that we see in them, but it's the quality they see in us that draws them to us. They come and they knock on our door, and we let them in, because we are not going to let that culture get diluted. It's too critical.
Who knows what the size is? It just depends on, as long as the culture doesn't become diluted.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think that it's really important to ask yourself, if you're an agent, what your brokerage brings to you. We all know what you're bringing to the brokerage. You're doing deals, you're paying money, you're doing all those things. What is your brokerage doing for you that's tangible and that's important to furthering the business you want to build?
Okay.
Right? So a good brokerage can be the best resource an agent has, or the biggest impediment. It can go either
depends. Way. Yeah.
And agents are different. Some agents have backgrounds in graphic design and marketing and all of that, and they have that dialed in, and they can do that stuff in 10 seconds. And other agents are more like myself. I'm going to have a conversation with you, and then I'm going to hope that somebody else makes something pretty in the background. If I could sell a house without ever having to make a video for the rest of my life on Instagram, oh my goodness, I would be so happy. But
we'll talk about that.
That's not the world we live in. The world we live in is now video oriented and reels and look what I've done and all of that. It's not comfortable for me, so I have to have help with that. And there's a lot of agents out there that also need help with that. And so if that's their sticking point, then find somebody who will help you with that. Again, those two agents can be at the same brokerage, and that brokerage can be supporting them in equitable ways, not the same exact, like they're not just, here's what we offer and that's it, but here's what we offer for you, and here's what we offer for you, because it's not the same need.
That's cool.
And it has to be nimble enough that they can do that. But
that's a really good point. Yeah, reciprocal assets, reciprocal. That's a good point. I think that's universal language for every business. I think the thing that's interesting with social media and having that pressure to produce content, I think it's kind of a slippery slope, right? Because I mean, if I think of business when I started in 2012, and here we are 13 years later, and the total transformation of the landscape, I think there's things getting missed though. You know what I mean? What we're doing as our job is not to get followers. I think it's like an unpopular thing to say, but I think I'm very, very happy to have straddled two worlds colliding. Because I think if I were to be a person of 10 years younger in today's age, I think there is a skewed truth on what people do in life. Because
100%.
Do you guys agree with that?
100%.
Yep.
I don't think you need to be doing
all of it
good on Reels if you don't want to be good on Reels. I think everybody's good on Reels. So
I think there's
the different one that actually can, not saying that having Reels and conversations are independent, not at all, but it's just the intent of saying, hey, I want to connect with somebody so that when they do find me on whatever way they found me in whatever funnel, if the funnel is Reels, then when I get to them, I want to make darn sure that they get what I was putting out there. You know what I'm getting at? Like, you got to live up to what you're doing. It's like, that's why I love the podcast. It's like, I'm going to be authentic. I'm going to bring on people that I like. I'm going to talk to people that I've learned stuff from, and we're going to share it with people that are watching. And like, that is a completely different intent than saying, hey, let's do whatever we want to do to look whatever way. It's like, people will feel when you're authentic, and they want to be around that. Like, at least in my experience.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. One of my favorite things to laugh at, actually, is so many. When I meet people and I have seen them on social media, and then you meet them and you're like, whoa,
Yeah, right. Whether it's personality, visual, whatever it is.
Whatever it
Yeah.
is, it's like, oh gosh.
Yeah, totally.
That is a very produced image over here. And the real thing has a little taste of it, but it's nothing like what you're seeing on. And I think that frustrates a lot of young people because they go to great lengths to curate this online persona.
Such a good point.
And then when people meet them in person, they're not that online persona, and it's off-putting immediately.
Yeah, there's a disconnect. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a good point, that as we've had a massive influx of agents, right, with access through socials and gaining a presence through socials, you're gaining a presence through a very curated image that's not in real time, right? It's like a lot of people can be good at business at a pre-record, but it's like when you're going into a situation live, you have to have some special, you have to have something about you. Like to typically connect with a ton of people, there's a lot of life experience that goes into that typically maybe, unless you're a rare breed, you might not have it 19 years old or 20 years old, or just from my own experience. I thought I was something fantastic at 22, but I know,
didn't we all?
Yeah, I know that I feel a heck of a lot more cool now. I feel like the older, that I get, where people are, I mean, everyone gets scared of aging in general just because your body hurts and it sucks. But the other side of it is you grow more and more into yourself every day. And I feel like that's something that I hope people don't lose sight of with the curation, is that, hey, like, people are getting together based on shared experiences, especially in real estate, whether it's in, my side of the world of home improvement, tech, or whether it's your side of the world of selling properties, but also just human connection. It all boils down to not necessarily needing to be curated at every minute.
Right.
So I like what you're saying about, like, I don't need to be perfect at Reels because I'm going to deliver when you put me in that home.
Right.
Like when I get the sold sign on the door, you will have realized why you chose me. That's how I feel, at least.
Yeah. And because there are so many hard conversations that we have in real estate, and
take us, what's a scenario of something that
when someone has to sell their house and it's not an ideal time. And,
they're needing to because of responding?
Because of whatever.
Okay.
Life events happen.
It's not always a choice.
No, we saw it in, 2008 when, it peaked and then people were losing their homes and stuff. But every sale of a house is not the happy, oh my gosh, we sold our house and now we're moving up to the next big house. Or, even in 2016 up to 2018, the thoughts in the market were that it was getting high and it was getting fast, and we had no clue what 2020 was going to bring. My goodness.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
it was just obscene. And so
it was a feeling before.
Oh yeah.
Like you guys were thinking that it was a bubble, or what was it?
No, we didn't necessarily think
or
that it was
opposite.
A bubble in 2018 or 2019.
No.
It was just that, the
market was very hot.
People were moving here, not like they were in 2020, but we as a country, we tend to say, okay, you're 18 or you're 20 or you're 22. Now it's time for you to go get your own living arrangement.
Yeah.
So we don't have familial homes like other countries do where generations live. We say, oh, we need more homes. We need more homes. And that had started. And
that's a cyclical that from your guys' viewpoint, that's something that you had said, hey, I've seen this a time or two before. Now we're going to see it again. Okay.
There was a really great article. It referenced that if the housing build starts that were started in 2005, if that pace kept up, we would still be short today.
Wow.
But it didn't, because in 2007, 8, 9, 10, housing starts stopped because the market crashed. And so then you had builders that were going out of business, weren't building homes. So then that just increased the shortage of housing. And then people started wanting more houses again. So we're, how many is it? 20 million houses short in this country today.
Okay.
And so that was already in effect 2018, 2019. And then 2020 hit, And Boise became discovered because people could work remote.
Yep.
And Idaho's wages weren't such a hindrance to building our population. And so the floodgates opened.
Yep.
And so you have to be able to have conversations with buyers of, I know you have $700,000 cash, but what you don't have is $1 million cash. And what the other 3 people bidding on this house do is have $1 million cash. So it wasn't even just first time home buyers and we're trying to do an FHA and we're poor, like we don't have all the money. It was cash buyers saying, but I have $700,000 cash.
Dang.
Okay. I'd like to buy a $600,000 house. Okay, well, it's going to cost you $750. Like, so
just lots of bidding wars, lots of,
and you have to be able to have those hard conversations and still like be on the other side of that conversation and go, okay, now we're going to keep going and looking at houses, or now we're going to get your house sold. Like whatever that looks like. And I do think, like for myself, a background in human resources and just the number of years I've lived.
You have to become people focused.
Yes.
And if
help.
you aren't, life will teach you to be
right.
have
or
humbleness
you will
and
go into
focus.
a different career.
Correct. Yeah. I want to reverse and have you guys tell me a little bit from back then with kind of what you were seeing like on, because I mean, I've watched the documentary, seen like Lehman, Bear Stearns, like all of what happened. And from what I understand, you were saying, hey, we're really behind on our quota for what we need for homes based on that constant trudging forward of people moving out. They go into the rental market. Those people will maybe then be going into the ownership market. So when all of that happened, it was a liquidity crisis that prevented people who wanted to buy from getting access to capital in order to purchase homes. It wasn't so much that there was an overbuilding. It was a mismanagement credit-wise, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
So that makes more sense.
So there was a period of time before the crash where I'm pretty sure your dogs could have gotten a mortgage.
Yep.
Yeah, because what was the big
Stated
one?
Stated income.
No documents.
Countrywide was the one, right?
So stated income, no documents. All you had to do was write down on a form that you made $1 million a year, and you didn't have to have any documentation of that.
And that was the due diligence with the
lenders.
lender?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
And so the lenders were like, yep, here you go. Here's your loan. Here's your loan. And we're like, well, now hold on a minute.
Yep.
You know, there's no way this person's ever even going to make that first payment.
Yeah.
How is this looking, right?
So it wasn't just the ARM or adjustable rate mortgage.
Right.
You're talking about even from, so why would they do that?
Because people, and we saw it was a big game of musical chairs, and then the music stopped and a lot of folks didn't have a chair because I'm buying this house. You and I are going to be partners on this is a great deal. We're going to buy this house over here, this brand new construction. We're going to get this loan. It's got an adjustable rate or it's got a balloon. It's going to be at this rate for the first 2 years and then it's going to go up. No problem. By that time, by the 2 years, it's going to go up in price so much. We're going to sell it at a profit, pay that loan off,
so
and
was
move
that the
on.
game?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And then,
Interesting.
which was great if you didn't happen to sign that paper right before it crashed, and then your house wasn't worth, it was worth pennies on the dollar, and there were no buyers because they couldn't get a loan, because now then you couldn't get, then it went from your dog can get a loan to no one can get a loan, and it's leveled out.
Yes.
But it was crazy.
That is wild.
Yeah.
And there was a big push as a country. The federal government really pushed home ownership leading up to that. Like that was how you knew that you were successful. And that it's not a terrible point. Like home ownership does bring a lot of rewards done correctly. But 2005 to 2007 was a lot of not done correctly.
Well, it ties a little bit into what you were saying earlier with the curated persona. It's like, and I even have talked with you years over years where I'm like, man, I'm finally getting to the point where I feel like whatever I can do is good enough, and what I can have is going to be great for my long-term health of me, my loved ones, and our goals. And I think everything goes in ebbs and flows, whether it's like music, right? Like hair metal bands of the 80s and eyeliner to super punk to, soft boy hour, sad boy hour music. I think I'm hoping that we'll start to get away from putting on the show for the gram at some point. I think at some point it will feel, I don't know, not authentic. Yeah. But I love that period of time because it's such a disaster of what happened. And then you had the Fed coming in and you had this bank is going to get bailed out, that one isn't. And then when they injected all that money into the system, liquidity still was pretty frozen, wasn't it? Like, and were you guys then following all of that? Like, was that something you're watching the news about, or you're like, whatever happens, happens? Like, what were you guys thinking when that was actually happening?
Well, I ran consumer credit counseling at that time. Okay. So I was not just watching it on the news.
Yeah. So you were living it.
Literally living it with my clients who had come in and paid off all of their debt because they refinanced their mortgages. Wow. And yeah, so I was actively watching people that I knew losing their homes. And so yeah, it was
because of the adjustable rate
Yep. And so I didn't have to watch it on the news. I was seeing it in my office every single day.
Wow.
And yeah, and so that is some really good things that took place after that is there's a lot more stringent lending laws.
Okay. Because Countrywide went under, we know that. So Countrywide went under. That was a lot of the subprime.
Lehman's.
I just think all that was like morbidly fascinating as a general overlook because it was such a train wreck.
Oh yeah.
Like you have anytime I think anyone is obsessed with boom and bust cultures where you have somebody that really feels like, they're in the Rome of it all and they're, at the peak of whatever. So to have such a wild crash on the other side is pretty interesting. And that was one of the things I was like, I got to talk to the ladies about that and get their opinion and insight about what happened because that's wild. So then from a career and a working standpoint, you're seeing that. And where were you at that year?
So were you still with? I was selling real estate. Yeah.
And for yourself, it was Aloha.
I was still on my own. Okay. Yeah. It was terrifying because I went from
all at once it was, or as it got worse and worse it was.
Oh no, like overnight.
Okay.
So I went from working 20 hours a day because you just couldn't keep up with all the buyers and sellers.
And you were making good coins
and making so much money.
Stacks,
right? And no time to spend it, right? I mean, just all the money and all the thing. And in real estate, if you're good at your
Debbie's
job,
buying shoes if she's getting
lots of shoes. Yeah. But in real estate, I mean, there's a real mentality for successful agents, I think, of making hay while the sun shines. Because
same with our industry,
right?
Roofing, it's
like if it's busy, then that just means you work 7 days a week, and you work more hours a day because it's going to slow down. It always does.
Yep.
And but it had never like just gone off a cliff and stopped before. So I went from having the biggest year I ever had to a bigger year than that to literally not selling a house for an entire year.
No way.
Yeah. There was no one could sell because no one could buy because, people were losing their houses left and right. The only income I had during that year was doing broker price opinions for banks who were taking properties back.
So that was your pivot then? You were going, okay, I go into the
No, I
You were still an agent.
I was still an agent and I kept teaching. Time. Yeah, okay. I kept selling. Yeah. I had already started doing some teaching at that point in time, not a lot, but and I've never done the teaching as that's never been my main focus. I do that because it's a way to serve my industry and the agents that I care about. It's also, quite honestly, it's a good way for me to have an impact on the professionalism and some of the attitudes that agents have because they don't work for me, but they sit in my classroom and they hear me for a couple of hours. And I feel like it's a chance for me to influence the profession in a positive way. Yeah. And I really enjoy doing that.
I would love to do a series that talks about the whole 08 situation because I think people love learning about it. And I think that would be a really cool series. I've seen people do 10-part series about it and it's cool. So I would love to do that. Run me through like your experience with BRR a little bit and just kind of teeing off the education because I think that's a really cool and a highlight for what you've been involved at a really like high level of leadership. And
the National Association of Realtors, as most people have been hearing lots of bad stuff about, but what most people don't understand, I think, is that it is a trade organization, just like the building contractors or any other trade organization, and it's there to help serve the members. So there are tiers. The local association here is Boise Regional Realtors, and it has just over 6,000 members in the Valley. And that is the organization that I served as president. I've been involved in their leadership for years. I started off on a committee, and then as that committee chair, and then I did a couple of stints on the board of directors. I'm actually, in 2025, I'll be the past president for one more year, and then we'll see what I do after that. I also think that one of the, when you are in a position of leadership, whether it's in a volunteer position or at a company, I think it is your duty to plan your succession. You need to be identifying other leaders and mentoring them and helping bring them along.
That'll strengthen what you've been doing
Absolutely.
a lot more too, because you don't have the like kind of yank and back and forth of a completely different ideal. So you're kind of grooming. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, and most people who make good leaders, this is just kind of the dirty little secret of leadership, don't see themselves as leaders. Someone has to point out to them that they're leaders, right?
Well, because by design, they aren't doing it for having a specific attention.
For personal gain
Or
personal,
that's
their ego.
That's a better way to say it.
Yeah,
Yep,
and so if you're what I like to call a servant leader, right? You're leading by serving the people that you're leading, and identifying those people and just pointing it out to them is super powerful, because people will be like, no, I can't lead anything. And I'm like, well, you lead every day. You just aren't aware. You aren't calling it that because you're not doing it for Instagram. You're doing it because it's in your heart to be of service and to help other people be better.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Our last little segment, I want to talk about repair work, which can be, if done well, profitable to the company, desirable to the client. So I wanted to kind of walk through just some things people might not know.
The form that you're referencing is an inspection contingency form, and that's actually the Realtor Association that creates
so it's not by the state,
those documents.
it's by the
right.
agency.
There are state laws that cover what can and can't be done, but those are defined by the Idaho Realtors Association, does those particular forms. And we, as a state, are really lucky. We have pretty amazing forms compared with everyone else out there in the world. We're in really good shape.
Good.
But the inspection is just a piece of the original purchase and sale agreement. So it's one of the terms and conditions when you're making an offer to purchase a property, and that the seller then can either accept or negotiate something different or reject it entirely. And then when you do, if you choose to do a home inspection, which
And you always should.
everyone should
Everyone
do
should
a
have
home
an inspection.
inspection.
Prior to the
Every
offer?
time?
No, that's part of the offer.
during
The
the
offer is
contract.
contingent
Okay.
on that home inspection, and oftentimes they'll call out the roof. But in today's environment, no one wants to take full responsibility for that. And so what inspectors will often say is that I recommend you have a qualified professional look at the roof. It's like, well, what did we hire you for? So then we
Right.
reach out to a roofing contractor. And that's where it's really helpful to use an agent who has relationships with competent, experienced professionals, because you're not just going, Googling who's a roofer and trying to find somebody and hoping that they know what they're talking about.
Got a ladder and a truck.
A ladder and a truck. That's about all you need, right?
I must be qualified.
Yeah, and a lot of them, talking about the Kool-Aid dilution example, a lot of people, they build successful businesses in storm restoration. A lot of the guys we talk to and a lot of the people that'll be viewing our episode when it comes out are going to be in storm markets. But a lot of people in the Northwest of where we're at, in Boise, Washington, Oregon, their business is purely retail. And a lot of our relationship on our professional side was coming in, seeing very complex issues, whether that's from siding to the roof, water penetration, damage, and then
Bad
coming
flashings.
up, yeah, exactly. And then coming up with a plan to work through that to save the deal, sort of. And so I wanted to try to see if you guys could share anything or insights with contractors, like whether it's best practice or whether it's, hey, I got a call from an agent. Can you guys give any advice to people as far as how they should interact with agents?
One of the reasons that and then, when we find somebody we really like, then we share that person with somebody else. And one of the reasons that you and I worked together, and that then you worked with a lot of other agents that I knew, or then agents that they knew, because you knew what you're doing. You weren't trying to BS the client. You also weren't trying to slap a piece of duct tape on something and hope it passed well enough to get the deal done. And so oftentimes you would guarantee your work, which is amazing, because
at least to 3 years.
If I can say to the buyer, my seller is willing to have that repair done, and the contractor's offering you a 3-year guarantee on that repair, that takes all the stress out of that now for both parties, right? So it's having somebody competent and reliable and trustworthy that can go in and assess accurately and give you a good plan for how you're going to approach that. It makes the difference between saving a deal and not saving a deal.
And don't air yourself out to dry.
Yeah.
Because a lot of, and not a lot, but some agents will reach out and they're different from you guys, and they might waste your time. But there's a lot of people that won't. If you, I have guys in on our channel that are always asking, well, how can I diversify my income stream on the roofing side? And to people, outsiders, do more roofing. But just like with any area, right? You have condos, you have multifamily, there's all different things to do. It's the same with roofing. You have different modes that you can earn income from. And I think a cornerstone of any roofing company, even if you are a storm market contractor, is to have a good relationship with at least a broker, because those are the people that are the gateway to properties. And I think if you have the education that's required to responsibly pick problems apart and solve them, and then help agents save deals, you will become a favorite. And I think that was what I always tried to do. I said, if I can make sure I can get this deal kept together in a way that makes sense for everybody, where I'm not losing money, they're not having the deal fall through, that will pay forward to work in a sustainable path.
For sure.
So
one of the things that I really liked about using you on an inspection was verbiage. You talked about that RE10, the inspection contingency form. Those should be a standalone document that anybody can understand exactly what it means. And it was really helpful to have you go out, look at a roof, and say, okay, here's what needs to be done to solve the problem, and put it into the correct words. So that even if the seller said, okay, I'm going to do it, but I'm not going to use your contractor because I don't trust you. Or they took that and went to 2 other contractors. I keep hitting the mic, sorry.
Oh yeah, you're fine.
Went to 2 other contractors and said, bid this specifically. Now you're apples to apples, right? Now you've got 3 bids that are talking about doing the exact same thing, because the wording is appropriate and concise.
And the product is consistent.
And the product is consistent. So you have to call out what product do you want that repair made with, right? That's really important, because if you just say, fix the missing shingles on the northeast side of the house, well, does that mean nailing up tarp? Does that mean putting plywood over it? Or does that mean actually making the repair in a way that's going to last for years? So yeah.
Well, and it's kind of like they talk in the old Febreze commercials, getting nose blind.
Right.
People get nose blind in your own career, right? So what you think is common language to somebody is not.
Right.
So I think a good point that we can tell guys that might be watching that are like, hey, I'm a young company, I watch this, and I think it'd be great to form relationships with realtors. Be as over-explanatory as you can, and somebody will say, hey, cut that short, but be concise, reference what materials you're using, show pictures if words don't do it justice, and then be reliable and be consistent, and don't focus on on the one sum job of what you are in front of you, but rather, hey, the volume per month, I'm able to be training a dedicated repair guy, where your job as a business contractor, not as a roofer, but your job as a business contractor is to grow your business in a way that you can build upon and have revenue stream diversification. A great way to do that, if you build a good relationship with a good brokerage, you can afford to have one guy that is dedicated to always interact with that brokerage in the same predictable way. That is how you will scale a business. If he's too busy, then you train another one, but you always focus on the consistency, being able to predict the product you give. I think that was always kind of my major path and plan with doing those. And when you have issues too, it's like we would have issues where I'd send a non-regular guy out and said, hey, we had problems. Then I have to personally go out there and fix it. But whatever it is, it's keeping the integrity and making sure that the person you formed the original relationship with, you have to be good with them always. Like you have to say, hey, something happened, something got screwed up. That was not my intention, and I want to do this to make sure that's solved. You know, just going back to the core of not doing it for the gram, doing it for the people type of deal, and trying to understand that you interact with real humans, and that's at the end of the day really going to protect your business if you have strong, good relationships that people know they can depend on you. Like that's kind of been all my take on things. Yeah, for sure. What time are we at right now? I'm going to sign off for now. We are going to have the ladies back because I want to definitely dive into some more topics. I wanted to say thank you guys so much for coming. We're going to link everything below for the ladies for PoweredBy, where you can go to their website soon, learn more about what they're doing, and hopefully purchase a property from them. So thanks for spending some time with us today, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks guys so much.
Thank
that was
you.
so fun.
That was so fun.
It was
much
fun.
easier.